Hey guys, so I've gotten a few questions since I posted my first video, the little intro video, just letting you know that I would take any questions and comments that you guys might have. And, just a few came in, and there was one that was actually pretty interesting to me. And the person who asked it probably just was expecting a simple yes or no answer to this. But I wanted to share it with you guys because I thought that there was, a few dimensions to it that I wanted to expand upon. Somebody asked me, is law school hard? Now, again, you probably just wanted a yes or no question. Yeah, it's hard. No, it's not that hard. But of course, like a lot of things in law school, you'll find out that there's no clear yes or no answer one way or the other. And, we always have to look into all the things that make it ambiguous and difficult. So let me just start from an objective perspective and say the material in law school itself, it can be pretty difficult at times, but at other times you would say, yeah, it's nothing too terrible. It really depends. Now I know that that's probably an unsatisfactory answer, but it really is the truth. There are some concepts that are very difficult. Keeping track of all the federal rules of civil procedure in your civil procedure class, or learning exceptions to rules and torts, and when you have a million exceptions to keep track of, that can be very difficult. Um, just the fact that there's a web of concepts, and no individual concept is something that you can just pick off in an individual piece. Everything needs to be put together to really understand it. So that can be something that makes it relatively difficult at times because certain things seem contradictory, or certain things you struggle to find out how it all builds together to some collective whole as you're learning the material. It can be difficult because you get so much reading that it's sometimes hard to keep up with everything. So, just staying on the ball and staying disciplined, that can be very difficult as you go along. You get to really make sure that you're prioritized and you're ready to work on a day-to-day basis, and you're really, ready and willing to put in those hours. If you don't, it can be difficult. That's not a comment on the difficulty of the material, but just, the process by which you learn it. Um, you know, Again, these are all just an objective. This is all just objective assessment of the material itself. Now, the real reason I'm making this video about whether I think law school is hard or not is to give you the dimensions on which I really can't answer that question. And there's three reasons that came to my mind of why law school might be difficult for people, but not in the objective sense that you think of, oh, the material is hard. The first thing to know is that pretty much every law school in the country is graded on a curve. Now, what that means is, I'm not a stats person, but a force curve just means that they have to give out a certain number of A's, a certain number of B's, and a certain number of C's. Some schools don't really give C's, but that essentially just means that a very low B or B minus functions as a C to somebody at that school. I believe some schools may even give D's and F's. It all varies by the school. But the fact is that they all have these kinds of forced curves. Now, the person who gets the best grade in the class, regardless of what score that might be, is going to get the A. The person who gets the lowest score, again, regardless of what the score that is going to get a C. So what that means is you're not just competing against yourself. It's not just an inward struggle of learning the material and then just putting it out on the exam. It's your score and your grade that you're going to get at the end of the semester is dependent not just on the work that you put in, but on the performance of your classmates as well. It's all relative to how everybody else performs. If everyone's really on top of their stuff and everyone gets a 95 on the exam and you get a 94, this is obviously an extreme example. The curve would never be that tight. But you would theoretically get the lowest grade in the class. If that happens to be a C, then you would end up with a C. If everyone's just getting 80s and you happen to get a 90, you might get an A out of that. It's all relative to how your classmates perform. Now, this is very different from what most people have been used to. In undergraduate, if everyone knows what they're doing and everyone studies really hard, everyone could theoretically get an A on the exam. But here that can't happen. There has to be this forced competition between everybody. This isn't a comment on the difficulty of the material, it's just the process by which grades are handed out is on this force curve, and that can be difficult for some people because they've never been in this kind of system before. Now I can make an entire video about the curve if I wanted to. Maybe I will, but I just wanted to introduce you to that concept and let you know that that is how the grading system works at essentially every law school. Number two is that there's no feedback throughout the semester in law school. You're only graded on that one final exam. There's no, some schools have midterms, but very few. The majority just, there's no grade. There's no way to know that you're doing things right over the course of the year. You know, it's like blind horses running a race sometimes. You don't know if you're even going in the right direction, and that can get frustrating to some people. You know, and I would say that's certainly a facet of what makes law school difficult, is that there's nobody there to hold your hand. There's no way to know that you're doing things right. There's no sort of affirmation. So, you know, it really takes a little bit of luck, and you have to sort of take a leap of faith sometimes that you're doing the right things. And the only way to know for sure is when you get your grades back, and by that point it can theoretically be too late to recover if you didn't do well enough. So that can make things difficult in law school. And number three, it's just the style of exams, because exams in law school are not like exams in undergraduate. Here, the focus is on application, not just regurgitation of the material. In undergraduate, they give you information, they feed it to you over the course of the semester, and then you have to just, you know, spew it back out when you get to the exam. And you know, they'll say what was the date of so and so, and you know, a history class, you just spit it right back out, or the definition of something and you just regurgitate it. Here, you're learning law and you're learning doctrine throughout the entire semester. And an exam, and I'm definitely going to be making a video specifically about exams, but again, I just want to introduce you to the concept. The exams here are applying all the doctrines and the concepts that you learned to a new factual situation. So that skill, that application skill, is not something that you learn throughout the course of the year. There's no class that's going to teach you how to apply these skills. So all the effort that you're putting into preparing for class and, you know, sounding good in class discussion, that's not necessarily going to help you during the exam. So you'll have people who, you know, are very smart, can memorize all the doctrine and every piece of law that they get, and they sound great in class. But those are not the people necessarily that are going to do well in the exam. The people who do well in the exam are the people who know how to take the law that you learned during the class and apply it to new factual situations. And there's really not enough focus of that. The class is not geared toward preparing you for this exam. It's really something you have to do on your own. So those three things, to me, make law school hard in a sense. Again, the fact that there's a forced curve, and you know that creates competition, it creates pressure, it lights a fire underneath everybody. The lack of feedback throughout the semester. There's nobody who's going to tell you if you're doing things right, and you really need to, you know, form a system in which, you know, get as much affirmation as you can. You know, it's hard, you know, and this is where speaking to past students and reading as much as you can about law schools really comes in handy. You don't want to be feeling things out, you know, completely blind. You want to have some kind of guidance, and you know, that's certainly what I'm here to provide, and you know, try and let you know if you're doing things right. You know, again, I'm not just giving advice to people who aren't in law school yet, but I'm happy to share advice with current 1Ls who want to know if their, you know, their study style or their outlining or their exam preparation is satisfactory. I'm happy to share my opinions on what you're doing. So again, definitely leave me comments, questions. You know, I'm happy to help out 1Ls and prospective students equally. And again, number three, just the fact that exam styles are so different in law school than they are during undergraduate. So I'll make a few more videos on, you know, those things based on the questions and the comments that I get. If none really come in the next few days, maybe I'll just start picking out topics. Say I'll make a video about outlining, I'll make a video about writing personal statements when you're applying to law school. You know, I look forward to hearing from you guys, and give me whatever feedback you can on these videos. Let me know any way I can be of help to you, and I'm happy to do it. So yeah, that's it for this video. Take care.